ASMR in
We're
the
not
background
live,
music
man.
is awesome. No, I know it's awesome.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Brad,
The stream
you
so I can
replying?
assume we're live. Yeah, I'm replying.
What is it? I need to know.
Oh, LA stream, welcome to the show, baby. We're live on Twitch and YouTube. We've got a fantastic show ahead of you lot today because we've got the clash, the Breaking Point Bowl, as I think Steve wants to try and call it. Seattle versus FaZe. Brandon's here, Austin's here. They're both gonna, I don't know, clash. I'm gonna put this this Crimsix meme in the replies. It's just a Crim meme line. There's nothing particularly special about it.
Wasn't that?
Sad face emoji I need for this Crim meme. There we go. That'll do. I don't know who made this, but I saw it a while ago. I thought it was good. We have used it, yeah. Anyway, let's go. What's good, Equip? Congratulations also. Let me get
We
rid
got
of
Nick in
that.
the chat. What's up, Nick? What's up, Nick?
Everyone's here, baby. We got YouTube and oh god, I just love this so much. YouTube and Twitch. Wait, is YouTube and Twitch are the chats on the screen? Or am I tripping? The chats are on the screen. Oh my god, just love to see it. Good stuff, Omar. Hope everyone's doing well and having a fantastic day. It was a major weekend. We're back in business. There's no Crone today. Oh, Austin's just disappeared.
Give me 1 sec.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. No Crone today because, well, I don't know. 5 people we thought was too much, and I think Crone said he might take a week off anyway. But I think he's going to be back. So that's exciting. But lines up early. Brandon's joining us live from Toronto, I guess.
Toronto, correct?
Yeah, let's go.
Home?
So, yeah, Brandon's just touring worldwide. He actually won his same event. People don't know.
That's true.
But-
That's true. The final remaining Canadian, apparently.
Exactly. Here we go, baby. The camera's doing it again.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, no, this is a classic. It always does it to me at the start. I reckon if you do it like 5, 6, 7 times, it'll be good.
Got the window blinds going on. It's like those transitions from Sony
like-
Vegas.
Mine does that as well. But it's so I don't think there's much you can do about it other than just keep like unplugging it, plugging it back in. What's good, Carly Garland?
There we go.
Hey, we go, baby. Come on. We're in business. All right, cool.
And we got Kyler's COVID test in the chat.
Yeah, we do.
I came
was
7th
favorite
place in
test,
the fantasy game this time.
Yeah, you
congrats.
did. I was for sure convinced I probably did get chalked, didn't I? I mean, all my players just placed terribly. Like, what is this? I should have just picked Seattle players.
Shut
I
up,
was
man.
going to get Sib, actually, but I decided against it. I bet on ROKKR, which is a mistake. But, you know, what can you do? Did Attach actually fraud? I felt like Attach did okay. Actually, no, it wasn't great, was it? It's fine. We bounced back.
Yeah, we got one more stage. And champs.
Absolutely, yeah. I need to bounce back in the predictions as well because I went all out for the win with the LA Thieves run, and
That
That
truck
did
just
not
scored,
pay
right?
off.
and now Lion is bloody tracking predictions across all stages. So now I look like an idiot. So now I've got to focus up. And even if I'm gonna lose, you got to think, all right, maybe I'll take 2nd place here just so that I can solidify the run for the season champion. So you got to think about that.
I'm shocked for that, man. I just want 1 stage victory.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah. No,
I think Austin and I are
you've got to
holding-
start off with like just safe predictions, and then you can turn it up towards the end. Like you
Oh,
go,
bro,
rogue
I
so
didn't know we were
often.
doing the whole thing because as soon as I know I'm gonna lose, I'm just like, fuck it. It was underdog.
Yeah, well, let's just send one.
Austin and I are holding back the breaking point overall.
It's all right.
Nah,
you guys are carrying
Everyone
though.
else is terrible. Like I did absolutely terrible this stage, and I was almost like I wasn't far off you lot.
Wait, you're still beating every caster, Brandon. Just fuck.
I'll take it.
And X and Zuma.
Ake said he was going undefeated when he was like perfect after 2 days, and then like the next day he lost one. So,
Didn't I? Oh, I got a bronze, didn't I? I came in like 3rd.
You came in 3rd in the first one, yeah.
It's not bad.
Oh, the first one? Oh, that's so disappointing then. Never mind. Just downhill from there, man.
Yeah, it's all good. We got 2 more. I don't know how we're gonna do champs. We can probably just predict a bracket or something like that. I don't know. But Major
Absolutely
4, the
wild.
pressure's on now. How far ahead is Crone of us in terms of like overall predictions? Because
Well,
you're
Lions at
close to him.
first.
I'm
Lions at first with 94.
Oh,
And
you're
then-
first.
Yeah, and then Crone's behind me by 1, and then you're behind Crone by 4.
Ah, see, I shouldn't have done the bloody Thieves thing. All right, whatever.
Oh,
I've got time to catch
You
up.
took a chance, man. It was fair enough. Fair enough. If it had happened, you would have looked like a genius.
I would have, yeah. I thought I'd do it just because I was hoping Jacob would see it and think, "It's my boy."
Yeah, I was.
You trying to send a
just
message?
Oh, what was
Trying to
I
get back on the
doing?
good books?
Mhm.
What was I doing in stage 3? I got 23 points over what? 47 matches? Jesus
That's
Christ.
48 matches. That's
Brandon,
actually less than 50%.
Brandon,
Monkey at the dartboard does
What's up?
better than us in stage
Did
2.
you see that me and Crone both predicted Seattle to win?
You guys both predicted us to win?
Yeah, on last week's podcast, both of them predicted them to win.
Look, I appreciate
And,
it, guys. I know
yeah,
you're. I know you're back in the APAC region, so
Yep.
Oh,
Trying
it
to
was
do you guys
legitimately a
proud.
good call.
I'm
Like
trying to do you guys
Surge
proud.
was in my Surge would have been in my top 3. Like people talk about inconsistency. Don't know if you think about this, chat, but I'm looking at like the top 4, top 6 from that event, and I'm thinking it's pretty predictable. Like the placings aren't so predictable, but going into the event, if I'd have told you that FaZe, Ultra, Seattle are top 3, like it's not exactly a crazy prediction, is it? Like I think a lot of people thought those teams would be top 4-ish, and then like OpTic were top 6, but if they'd have won that series against Thieves, then it would have been the top 4 were like clearly top 4 teams of the game. I don't know.
Yeah, but ROKKR, people thought ROKKR were going to be there. People
Yeah,
thought,
true. Like ROKKR
New
and
York as well.
New York, that's true. So that was a bit unpredictable, but I mean,
I don't know.
just
People
the
thought
way
New York
that
was
they
going to be
played.
top 4.
Yeah, I mean, I had confidence in New York, and in fairness, they should have beaten you guys. To be honest,
Wait,
they
when?
should have. Well, no, not you lot, but
Um,
Seattle.
Potentially
Round,
us.
round 1. They should
Oh.
have 100% won that game. Game 5, round 11,
Debatable.
4v3 and 3v2, definitely winnable.
I was like, us. God damn, I don't remember
Yeah,
playing
no,
them.
you didn't.
You didn't account for the ice, though. Okay.
No, I didn't account for the ice, but I was fuming because it was on that day. It was starting super late, right? Day 1, and I was sitting there thinking, okay, Seattle up 2, okay, just get the 3-0 done. We get a nice little early day going on here, and then New York bring it all the way back just to lose
Yeah.
game 5 round 11. Anyway, I'm like, what's the point?
They dealt us our first control loss in a while, I think. So I mean, that's where things started to go wrong.
Yeah, I thought it was a 3 if you lot. See, I still think they're good. That's the thing, but they just got shook against London. You know, Horrid Harry's
Funny.
just too good.
In a funny way, I feel like the way that we've been winning has been like breaking teams in a way.
I feel that actually. New York probably after that one they thought, Jesus, that was our chance
Yeah.
to like do it, you know. But they need the mental. All right, boys. Let's crack on, I reckon. What episode are we on, 68? Damn, let's get her. All right, cool. I'll do a 3, 2, 1. Welcome all in the chat. Gonna have a good show. Let me know when you get Omar. Fantastic. All right. 3, 2, 1. All right, guys. HECZ back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Welcome to episode 68 of the Breaker Boy podcast. We're live on Twitch and YouTube after the fact on all the ideal platforms. You guys have been showing great support as of late. Today, a special episode with the winner, the champion, the mastermind behind it all, Brandon Novus of the Seattle Surge general manager. Going to have a heated debate here with Austin as to who's the better team of the game. But, Austin, of course, is back from Atlanta FaZe, another unfortunate set of events. But, 3 grand finals out of 3. It's not too bad. Line 2 as well to break it all down. We're going to have a great show. Everyone's having a great time in the chat. How are we doing? Novus, first of all, welcome. You're back home in Toronto. Kind of interesting stuff, actually. Got to stay home after the event. And, lap up the celebrations, baby. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I mean, first win for the team, first win for myself. Super proud of the guys. I mean, we're all just celebrating, taking it in. They're staying back a few days in Toronto, just hanging out and enjoying the city a bit. And then we're gonna be back to the grind. So that's that.
Austin, how is it going? How we coping with the weekend? Unfortunate set of events, but at least you got back safe and sound. I know people have been having travel issues. We take our mind off the weekend.
Yeah, no, I'm actually doing pretty good. It's weird, but after we lost that, I actually didn't feel bad. Because I felt like that was actually the best we've played like an entire weekend, like all season. So like I I felt better after this weekend than I did going into it.
It's all about the champs run, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess you guys have been looking better every stage, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, myself, I've been just watching matches from home. I'm not involved in the league at all, really. It's chilling. It's been some great matches. I enjoyed this weekend a lot. I did work on Sunday, so I missed some matches, but it's okay. I enjoyed the most part.
It's all good. I saw some of your cards, like some of your old school cards in one of HECZ's videos. And if you saw that line, Khan was like signing some OG lineman cards where they had like the bars going right across the middle. Good times, good times. Let's crack on. I wanted to talk to Brandon real quick, like have a discussion about Seattle, the organization, like what was the thought process coming in? I know we've talked about it before when you guys initially formed the roster, but like how have the last few weeks been? Because you guys go to the Pro-Am and just get bodied. You lost to Cillian, Fire and K, and I was like, we talked about this team at the start of the season. I think we all agreed that this team has an awful lot of potential. The rookies on the team are definitely the ones that you wanted to get from the offseason. Mac was a great pickup, and accuracy, I was like, okay, is he the guy to lead these guys? That was a bit of a question mark. You kind of know what you're going to get out of accuracy, and I think he's actually been great the last few weeks. And the question was, could they put it together? We thought that at the start of the year they might struggle, and it was about this time of the year, Major 3, Major 4, that I think we expected Seattle to become a threat, given them a bit of time. But I think the thing that threw people off was the fact that you guys were really good out of the gate, and then it was like, well, you've come second at the kickoff, and then you were really good at the start of stage 1 and then fallen off. And then it's like, damn, is this team actually somehow a flop, right? But if you guys had struggled at the start and then slowly ramped up, then I think people would have, there would have been less calls to blow it up, let's just say. And especially after the Pro-Am, I was like, well, is accuracy the leader for these guys? Because there's no other real change you could possibly make. The team was just too strong on paper. So how was that from your perspective, right? Like, was there ever an element of losing faith after the Pro-Am, or was it like, okay, maybe we got a bit complacent after the kickoff, back to the drawing boards? Yeah, it must have been a crazy few weeks to go from that, like literally a month ago, from that to this.
I mean, not just that, but like the entire season is kind of in that sort of crazy roller coaster. We started off like before the kickoff, even just like heads down, grinding in the office, practicing as much as we could. I feel like we got a head start on a bunch of teams, and that's why the kickoff showed so well. And then what happened at the kickoff was, everyone kind of got a little complacent, egos got brought up, and didn't really understand what it took to stay consistent throughout the year. So going to Major 1 obviously came last place, not the result that anyone wanted, but that's probably the best thing that could have happened to us at that time. That was like the big wake up call. It was like, hey, like, we aren't actually as good as we think we are. We can't just get by on talent. We actually have to put in the work and remember why we were so good going into the kickoff is because we were outworking people. We were, doing the extra hours, putting in the extra work, that type of thing. So that was a good wake up call. Going into Major 2, no, this was not the question, but kind of figured it'd be a good opportunity to just kind of like give a brief overview. Going into Major 2, honestly, we felt like we were, a top three team that had the potential to win that tournament. And I don't know, I feel like a lot of people may not like know the behind the scenes, but the way we lost, unfortunate circumstances. Mac wasn't feeling well. Lost to Atlanta in Game 5, round 11. Mac, he had to throw up like during that series, came back, right? So that was like a rough series. If he was at 100%, who knows where that could have gone, right? And then our next match was against LAG, the eventual champs. We had to sub in Nicky D. He played incredibly for us, won us both the hard points, but just that like, lack of practice with us really showed in the search, and in the control. Just we had a difficult time there as well. So imagine a world where we had Mac at 100%. Major 2, I think, to us looks very different. So that's in the past. Going to the Pro-Am, we were like, man, we gotta redeem ourselves. This, and that. And then right before the Pro-Am, we had like maybe a week of like really unproductive practice, just some internal issues that we were trying to work through, and really poor timing basically. And that was enough for us to kind of hit the Pro-Am and just not show up, not look like the team that we were supposed to be. And by the way, put some respect on Cillian Fire 40's name, okay? They beat us fair and square. That match didn't count for anything, but they deserve some respect for that, okay? But we just we're like, fuck it, have short-term memory loss. That event is a wash. Let's just remember how our practice was a few weeks before, which was incredible, and keep that going into stage 3. And that's what we did. Just stuck to what's Lamar is saying. Stick to the GP on GD. Work on the GP every day in the lab, and then come to the matches and execute the GP on GD as best as possible. And it worked out. Definitely some close matches. Some ice had to be applied, but we pulled it out in the end. Proud of the guys.
Yeah, GP on GD. That's quite something.
Yeah, that's the motto.
The question I'm wondering is because you talked a little bit about egos and clashes, and it was kind of a point that, okay, would that come along? Would that arrive this season? The whole SIB question was a big one going into the year, right? This guy, we remember the clip, or maybe not everyone knows it, but there was a clip last year where Crim and SIB were playing in 8s, and Crim was having a go at SIB for playing a certain way, and then it was clapping back, and SIB's been in a fair few dramas before he's been in the Pro League, and now he seems to have tamed it down a bit, but was there a period where the players weren't, because we've seen this in the past it's happened so many times in Counter-Strike, for example, when Karrigan, as an IGL, has led a team to success initially, then things fall off, and then the star players on the team say, okay, Karrigan, our IGL, he's not dropping great numbers, he's the problem, kick him, he goes to another team, does the same again, and now, of course, he just won his major with FaZe recently. Was there ever conflict between the rookies and Accuracy's leadership? Was there an adaptation period there?
I'd say the best way to put it is, I feel like at the pro level you have to have a certain level of an ego to be a competitor, and it's kind of combined with a bit of stubbornness too. You have to believe that you are that guy. You have the skill to compete. So with that comes a bit of, I guess, that can create some conflict when people disagree. And they're trying to kind of come to a conclusion of, hey, what's the right way to play? But each person feels very strongly about what they believe in. So really, it's finding the balance between managing an ego and a certain personality and a certain amount of stubbornness, but also keeping in mind the end goal, which is we want to win together as a team. It's a team, and I think that's where Stam Phoenix comes into play really well, and myself. We try to, facilitate those conversations and steer them in the right direction. So that way people aren't just going at each other. People are being constructive and really focusing on the end goal, the shared goal, not just, hey, my point is right, or I want to get my point across. So the culture, I think, here is set up so that way we try to prevent those types of things happening. And, at times it's there, and that's normal for a team. Every team's going to argue, but we try to make sure that it, doesn't blow up the team, essentially. And it's been working so far, I think.
Yeah, shout out Phoenix and the boys behind it as well. Thoughts,
100%.
guys, before we kind of crack on with diving into the major effectively, because we've got loads of teams and storylines to talk about
here. Just Seattle.
Well, thoughts on Brandon's performance, man. I mean, he's just killed it. He's won the thing. Austin's in the bin.
I don't say it like that.
Austin, do you have anything to say about it?
Yeah, no, you guys played terrific, and something that stuck out to me is you guys actually had to come back, were tested a lot. I don't really remember the New York series, because I think that was either when we were warming up. Yeah, but I think that was either when we were warming up or when we were just leaving. I can't remember. But I know the Florida one, I know you guys were down 4-2 in the S&D, down 2-0 in the control. Against us in the winners bracket. I know we should have. I can't believe the Tuscan control.
Yeah.
For, the final 30 seconds, and then we had a 100-point lead in the Tuscan hard point, and then we had a bunch of leads in the final. So it wasn't a fluke thing. So it was really tested and tried and true. So it just, I don't know. It was just a really fantastic run by you guys.
Yeah. Appreciate that. That Tuscan hardpoint, by the way, I watched it back. We had 9 out of 11 rotations on the map, if you include us starting good side on Tuscan as well. And you guys broke our first 5 rotations that we had. So,
That's just,
and then we
that's like our
proceeded to
strength
hold the
on
rest
that.
of the rotations.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy to think about.
Yeah, I just want to touch on, it's pretty amazing that you guys, like during Major 2 and then through the Pro-Am and then the start of the qualifiers, had a 6-match losing streak. And then since then, you've had an 8-match winning streak, and then you've won a Major as well. So that's like just insane. And then Pred messaged me the other day, and we were talking about how his respawn's so good. The only thing that could possibly lose him the event was being bad in search. And then Pred put a 1.5 up for the Major in search.
Yeah,
Which is insane.
he was
So-
making plays, especially on that Desert Siege. Sorry, Austin, map 5. That guy was making
Oh, yeah,
plays.
the first
He was
one.
basically, he said to us afterwards, he was like, everything that I thought to do, like, worked out. Just like perfect for him. So,
That's awesome.
also speaking of search, shout out to our coach, Nick Equip. He's been putting in extra hours just to help level us up and make sure we're as prepared as possible for search. So, wouldn't be here without him. Wouldn't have been able to accomplish that without him for sure.
Yeah, because you went 5 of 3 in search, and then search was just like the only shaky mode you had going into the match. So that's awesome. All right,
Let's get it, baby. Let's crack on. I mean, the first team to talk about is, of course, Seattle Surge. You know, we've discussed them a bit already, but I think like the interesting thing to me about it is like, what's the future of this team? That would be my intrigue. Is that because I actually think you guys made a lot of mistakes in that grand finals. Like watching that back, I'm sure you guys will do or have done, but there were a lot of moments, especially in Search and Destroy, especially, but other game modes as well, where 4v3 advantages thrown away. Like I think there's still a lot you guys can clean up on that, and I think that's exciting. What do we think about the whole 5 events, 5 winners thing, right? Like, is this a Vanguard thing? Maybe to a degree. Is it a competition thing? Probably to a degree. Is it just hard to stay on top? Which it certainly is. But I think it's interesting, like, there's been 5 events, 5 different winners, and none of them in FaZe, which is kind of incredible. But not to rub it in also, but just to say, like, FaZe are the dominant force, but yet haven't won one, which just goes to show, like, the way that these events have been going in Vanguard. Like, I definitely think that the game has a factor here, but also, I don't know, momentum is such a massive force. And to me, the only real like fluke victory is the LAG one of Major 2, to be honest, because you guys have been showing this promise for quite some time. And I think the whole Major 2 run, if Mac was healthy, you guys probably knock out LAG in that losers bracket, to be honest. Or even beat FaZe in the winners, who knows, right? But probably that goes different if you don't have to play with Classic as a sub, and then it might be a completely different event. So I feel like every team that's won an event has showed some promise. The LG one was a bit strange, but that's just sometimes that happens, right? So yeah, what's your thoughts, Brandon, on expectations for the rest of the year? Because after LAG won Major 2, it was like, where are they going to be for the rest of the season? Can they still be top 4? No one expected them to win again. But for your team, it's like, well, people are thinking, well, X believes you guys will fall off and be top 5 through 8. Maybe you will. Or maybe you'll still be a top 4 force for the rest of the season. I lean on the side of the latter. Whether you'll win again, I don't know, because Vanguard, you get your one win and that's done and dusted, It's Minnesota Rocket Major 4, it's FaZe champs. My early prediction.
I mean, you're definitely right. I think the game plays a certain amount of a factor, but for anyone to believe that that's the only reason why we're seeing so much randomness, I think they're faded. It's one aspect. The other aspect is the league is incredibly, it's way more competitive than it has been any other year. I think there's a lot of smart decision makers on teams that are, building really powerhouses of teams basically. So the competition level has never been this high. But I mean, our goal for going forward at least is to stay right up there. I've talked to the players on the team and Sam, and we're not happy with just one. Like we obviously want more, and it's just a matter of repeating what we've done in the past, at least in practice, and keeping the mindsets and attitudes, in a balanced and controlled spot, not, over the top where it's like, oh, we don't have to practice anymore. We're the best shit. So as long as we can do that, I feel like we'll be able to find some consistency going forward and, knock on wood, hope we can pull out another one.
Let's do FaZe. Obviously, commiserations, Austin, but top 2 again, it's tough scenes. I must say, though, you guys are still the scariest team in the game. Like, there's no occasion where FaZe are down and out. Like, when we even mentioned this with Brandon before the show even began, but when they were up 3-0 grand finals with Berlin Hardpoint and Desert Siege Search to come, I was like, this might be chalked, but all of a sudden you guys pull two maps out of nowhere. The series is so competitive. I was convinced you guys were going to win that game 8 and take it to a search and destroy, and who knows what happens there. So that's the thing that I'm always so impressed with FaZe, is that like whenever you guys never, well, apart from that like series whatever against Minnesota, but you guys never get 3-0'd, you know. Very rarely it happens. Every series is always competitive, or even if you guys are down, there's an incredible resilience about FaZe, which I think is always impressive. And they also have an incredible ability to beat Toronto every time you play them, despite how good they might be looking. Toronto just lose to FaZe, and it's tough because you guys beat them twice this event, which was key to the run. But yeah, you're in their heads or something. I don't really know what that is. But you know, the other factor is like these critical situations, man. I mean, obviously, I'm sure you're going to touch on that control lost in the first series, because I think that that series kind of set the tone in a way. It's not like the V2 advantage helped massively in the grand finals, but it probably should have had more of an impact than it did due to the kind of hardpoint situation, right? And playing Berlin, which you guys don't like to play that much, which of course you guys won anyway. But theoretically, the V2 advantage should have done something there. But yeah, I don't know. Like, there's this weird like negative ice about FaZe sometimes in these clutch situations. I don't know if it's just Seattle had crazy ice, but FaZe, I think, is still vulnerable to situations like that. It was very reminiscent of the kind of OpTic series where you guys got reverse swept at the start of the year, where you lose a close control, close hardpoint, and then get blown out in the final search. Of course, momentum is a thing in COD, but I think that's something that you guys have to think about. But I still feel like you guys have got to win one of these final two tourneys. There's no way there's like 5 different winners this year plus, and FaZe doesn't get a piece, right?
Yeah, no, it's really weird, but we actually came out of this way more confident. Like when we were down 0-3 in the finals, and one of our coaches literally looked over and was like, "We're winning COD champs." Like, I don't know, like we're doing the right things on the map, and we're doing it together, which is important. Like, I don't know if you guys remember when we lost to LAG, I was literally so upset because we were just doing stuff so individually. Like we were sliding the doors by ourselves, not waiting for teammates. Like that shows that you're kind of like trying to play like hero ball, like you're trying to do it yourself. And there was like the bow cage S&D that we played. Like we had multiple people sliding in together, like working off of each other. It's just about like making those small adaptations. Like the first time we played U1 Siege, we got absolutely spanked, and then on the second time we actually tried to, you know, do more stuff together, get more information, not just rely on, you know, waiting for the other team to show up and then out skilling them. And like stuff like that, like I don't know, it felt really good watching it. Like it was like the first grand finals, I actually wasn't like super stressed out. Like I like if you guys won, it was just because you guys were the better team that day. It wasn't because like we threw it away. Like I honestly felt like the last two finals we threw away a lot because we just weren't playing together at all. And I don't know, like this one, you know, it hurts still, but I told the guys as soon as we went back to the locker room that like, you know, E United and Black Ops 4 won the last two tournaments of the year. Last year we won Major 4 and COD champs. Like, it seems like every year, even in Modern Warfare, a lot of people don't know this, but the month before champs, I don't think we lost a scrim. We were pounding everybody. And then unfortunately, like the way the bracket was set up is there was a week break in between champs, and we did nothing but scrim amateur pickup teams, and it just deteriorated everything so badly. But like it's just like it's a trend with our team that, you know, the end of the year when like all the chips need to be down is when our guys are at their best. You know, obviously I would like to win a couple of chips at the beginning of the year, but like I saw so many good things this past weekend. I mean, like so many good things that I didn't sweat it. I knew like coming out of that tournament, we're going to be actually in a better place because there's a lot of like VOD where we can actually show them doing the right things. Like we can build off of that. So I'm actually was really excited to see like how the next tournament goes off of this one.
All right.
You got like a silver lining, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
I have questions about FaZe. What is up with your first blood rate? You went 28 and 51 at the major.
So the thing with first bloods that I've kind of learned is you gotta track also when they're traded. Also when you win it, so like when you win a first blood, but then the team gets 2 kills. So what I do is I do as soon as the first blood happens, I skip forward 5 seconds, and then I see where the situation is there. So we're actually like we do feed a lot of like first bloods, but we end up the majority of the time with even strength after that 5 seconds. So a lot of it's traded, which we do have a high like win percentage when it's even. The problem is we have one of the league's lowest like clutch win rates, and we have one of the league's highest clutched on loss rates. So it's a little bit of bad luck. It's a little bit of, you know, making our own bad luck. But like that's like two characteristics that are like not unlucky, but like that shows that we have like our win percentage should be a little bit higher in certain situations. So yeah, it's tough, but one of the silver linings with that is our 4v3 win percentage was absolutely fucking fantastic this tournament. When we were getting first bloods, we were dominating maps. I think the first S&D we played was against I gotta look at the bracket again. Was against Toronto, and we 6-0'd them. And we had a first blood. We had a first blood with man advantage every single round, and just cleaned out. So yeah, it's literally just cleaning up a lot of the small mistakes. Like when we lost in past times, there was a lot of like big mistakes that were like compounding. This tournament was a lot of good things with small mistakes, which are easier to clean up. So we just have to stay positive and like, yeah, build off of it.
All right, I've got another one. How did abezy react this weekend after certain controversies?
So like obviously that was a big talking point. You know, I didn't agree with it. Obviously, I don't ever want any like private stuff that's inside of a team going public. Like that's what's so hard about doing like this podcast and being a part of stuff is it's really hard to walk like a fine line between like oversharing and like acting stupid, you know, acting like I don't know something. That's always like the toughest thing with this and like doing anything public. You know, obviously, like, you know, our team, this is a long season. We've gone through some lulls. Our practice has been absolutely like, it would honestly be breaking records. I can't say it until after the season, but our practice is honestly ridiculous. It sounds stupid to say this, but this is our best team game ever. Like out of the 4 years I've tracked stuff. But when we go to tournaments, we have to rely on your practice. You have to rely on what we built on in practice and not just try to like outskill teams. So like sometimes I feel like we feel too confident. So I don't know. The Tyler thing, you know, it was never just like anybody. You know, us as a team, we will always have to not rely on just our skill. That's something that it's an easy trap to fall into when you're a team. So that thing, honestly, it was water under the bridge. It was motivating. I think we went out and beat a team the very next day. We 3-0'd LA, and like this is the most like fired up I've seen the guys in a while. Like they were like excited. We were screaming again on stage. You know, you saw the clip of like Alec like flipping off the I don't know what he was flipping off the other team, the crowd. I don't know, but like we were honestly like really had high energy, and you know, I don't really care about like the white noise on the side. Obviously, that's a little bit louder white noise, but like I feel like that was a good, you know, I feel like everyone was pretty open and just talked and just said like, look, like we don't care what everyone else is saying. We know what's going on inside of our team. We need to be brothers at this point and build off of this, and that's kind of what we did. And that's why, again, like I feel so much more confident right now than, you know, like 2 weeks ago, because I just feel like we're confident. We are starting to be more passionate about the game. You know, we're fine. We're playing Vanguard. We can't sit here and just, you know, not like Vanguard. You have to put up with it, get good at it, and, you know, build off of it. So yeah, I feel really good. You know, the team feels really good. We obviously had a setback in the finals and the winners bracket, but honestly, I really feel good about how we performed at this tournament, even though the results might not show it.
Yeah, good work. I think that definitely shows a lot about a team's character when something like that happens, and it's like either that derails the team or people start talking internally and friction starts to develop, or it's like, look, let's just block it out and come with the fire and do our talking on the server, you know, which is exactly what you guys did this weekend. Yeah, I don't know. Impressive work, I think, from FaZe in general. I think it's interesting what you said, because it reminded me a little bit of what Crim said after they played I think it would have been the launch weekend back in Modern Warfare 2020 when he played that first event with Shotzi and Illy. And of course, a different scenario here, but he basically was like, look, yeah, we lost to OpTic or Huntsman as it was, and Scump and Form was screaming across the stage. But after that event, he just basically said, okay, yeah, we're winning champs. We're going to win something this year because this team has so much potential. And he felt like all the cylinders were going to click at some point, which of course they did. So it's interesting to hear the same confidence from your end. Let's talk Toronto because they had a good weekend. They're looking scary, man. They really are looking scary. I would have been very intrigued to see how they would have done against you guys, Brandon, if you had have played them in either the grand finals or in the losers finals that it could have been, because with the home crowd, there definitely is a home crowd advantage. I saw it firsthand back at Birmingham 2018 when Bance was on Splice, and they played probably the greatest few maps of COD that I've ever seen played in my life when they were playing firstly Rise and then the first series against LG in the finals. Like, Rise was such a good team, as were LG, and they were just 50-point clubbing them in hard points, like demolishing them in search, and the crowd was just going rogue, and then they ran out of steam and lost the tournament. We won't talk about that. And it seemed like the same thing for Toronto at this event. Like the crowd was all there. Awesome to see the crowd doing well. But this is the stat that I wanted to share. I'm also pretty sure, like, if they'd have played OpTic in that losers, I think they'd have beaten them as well, to be honest, because we know what Toronto are like against OpTic. But on the other side of things, FaZe versus Ultra. That over the last 2 seasons, FaZe are 11-1 against Toronto. And that is the only loss, I believe, is in the grand finals of that Major 2 last season. So, yeah, 12 matches between the two. It's kind of crazy to think you guys have played them 12 times the last 2 years, compared to some teams that barely played each other at all. But yeah, 11-1 this year and last year combined. That is the key, because it feels like if they want to win something, they've got to get through you guys, and they just can't do it. But I don't know. Cammy's back. Honestly, their play to get to map 5 in that series against you guys was like fantastic. Like that map 4, I mean, you guys choked it, but whatever. But then just to collapse the way they did game 5, they were just making more on plays. Like, I don't know, Insight was premium with the sniper. Like, Insight and Cammy map 5 combined for like, they're like 3 or 4 kills between them, and you'd expect those guys to turn up game 5. So, don't know what happened that game 5. Just they remembered they were playing FaZe and just threw it away. I guess I don't know how to explain it, to be honest. What do you think, Brandon?
I mean, hats off to Toronto. I feel like they've figured out whatever was the issue at the beginning of the year, and they're back as a team. Not just Cam, the whole team is back. So that's awesome to see. Like, you know, shout out to the players, shout out to the coaching staff. Whatever they've done is clearly working. I think it would have been cool to see them in the grand finals. Like, that crowd was electric. I think I said in a tweet, like, Toronto as an org, like, set the bar for how an event should be run, and I feel like the team was just getting fueled by the fans like the entire way through. So it's cool to see them turn things around. I think they're, you know, a team to watch out for sure. And you know, we'll see what they get up to in stage 4 for sure.
Austin, me?
Yeah, you go, brother.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on their search and destroy this major. They had a 1.26 for the whole event. And the lowest KD in search was Bance with a 1.1, whereas the rest of the team all had 1.3s in search, which is ridiculous. They went 6-1 for the whole major. And the only team they lost to was FaZe. So obviously their match with FaZe is not ideal. Austin, do you want to touch on how your 2 teams kind of match up and the reason why they might have some struggles there?
Yeah. So I don't know. It's really weird. So like as you were saying earlier, Brandon, like this is a really talented year. I almost don't agree. I feel like last year and like the years before we had a lot of like top heavy teams. But there was a lot of competitions with it. Like this year, it feels like there's like 2 or 3 teams at the top, and then I feel like the midfield is like the most competitive as it's ever been. I feel like the 4 through 11 right now is like really competitive. But it's really weird. Toronto is a really good team. They're starting to figure some stuff out. I still feel like they're just a little bit behind on the respawns, but their S&D is back up there with their Cold War, where they can like take a lot of teams in that. The thing is they just have to find one other good mode, because if you guys remember last year they were winning. They were just as good as us in control. Like a little, like our teams were 1 and 2, and then they were really, really strong in S&D. So they just have to figure out a second mode where they can rely on to get them through tournaments. This was a good run, like a great run by them. Their crowd was absolutely electric. So our first match we played against them, we did a listen in, and I couldn't even hear our listen in. I didn't know what was going on, because like the crowd was so loud. But I was really rooting for them to do good this tournament. I feel like they can come out of this tournament feeling really good. They got a 3rd place, so that's their highest placing of the year, bar the kickoff. So I feel like this is something they can build off of going into the rest of the year. I think hopefully right now they're looking at this as, look, like the top's open for the taking if we can get there. Like obviously, like you guys, us, and Texas are up there, but if they can find some form going into this last 2 tournaments, like that 4th spot's theirs right now, and they can definitely make some damage and make a deep run, just as we've seen, a couple teams do right now. So they definitely are probably feeling really good about this tournament.
I mean,
You
yeah,
just
they're
wanna
in a go online.
One more thing. I was looking at Toronto versus FaZe. It's matchup wise, only Insight has a positive KD in respawn, whereas the other 3 are getting completely bodied. And I think just it depends on which players are facing which players, and obviously Atlanta, 3 out of 4 players are dominating in respawn. So continue.
Yeah, we just play really fast. I don't know. It's not like a bad matchup. It's just sometimes when we play that fast, you can't really make many mistakes, or you have to like make us make mistakes. That's why I think like when they play OpTic, like OpTic's not a slow team, but they're on the slower side. I feel like they match up better versus them. So I don't know. It's really weird. I feel like this event they had maybe a little bit of an edge on S&D, but even then, when they lost the S&D to us in the first round, I was like, okay, it's like a weight lifted off my back. We're going into this control. We're gonna be looking good. So maybe that's kind of like where the matchup doesn't lock. But a lot of the times too, like their map pool is very similar to ours. It was the same way last year. So that's just something where it's kind of unfortunate, where you kind of have to either have to square up on the against each other's best maps, or you have to go onto a map where you're maybe not as comfortable on. But this year it's a little bit weird because of not having a full map pool.
Yeah. I'm looking at their map pool, and they only 1 map do they really hate, and only 2 maps do they really love. They hate Bocage S&D. They pick it 4 times and then vetoed it 14 times. And then Desert Siege they love for S&D, and then Tuscan S&D they love. The rest, it's all kind of just mixy. So their map pool's pretty wide, but they don't really have many favorite maps, it seems. Is that the same with you guys?
Yeah, for S&D, yeah. We are pretty much even on every map besides Siege. We're 8 and 6 on Siege. But where you find the big difference is going to be the respawns. So like you play those 3 out of the 5. We're 12 and 4 on Bocage. They like Bocage. We're 13 and 5 on Gavutu. They were playing a lot of Gavutu. I don't know if they still are, but they were playing a lot of it before. And then we're 12 and 9 on Tuscan. And then same thing as in Control. They like Tuscan too, and we're 11 and 4 on that. So they kind of fall into the trap of like same map pool as us. So that's just something tough that you kind of happens against when you face a top team.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's just limited maps available, so
yeah, you can't really slice up the vetoes.
Yeah.
Yep.
What are Cleanx's stats looking like against FaZe compared to against non-FaZe? Because I feel like in the series they lost, he was like kind of struggling, but like against everyone else, he ultra fried.
Well, if we look at everyone, just FaZe, he had a 0.89 in hardpoint, a 0.9 in search, and then a 0.6 in control, and just for this major. And then if we look at everyone else, let me just grab some more stats.
Well, it doesn't have to be just overall,
Overall, and then he had like a 0.9 and then a 1 in search and then a 0.9 in control, which is pretty much just how he plays. But against everyone else at the major, against everyone else at the major in search, he had a 1.6, and then he had a against Atlanta, a 0.9 or whatever.
It's interesting how it works matchups,
I mean, they hardly lost any respawns the entire tournament except for to FaZe, so
yeah,
tough for them.
Yeah, and they lost no searches at all, apart from against FaZe. They lost 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because we went 5 and 1 in respawns versus them, and then we won we had the strong Tuscan. I think. What was this first series? I thought it was Bocage. Against, maybe that was against LA Thieves.
I think you played Desert Siege first series and lost to them or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
the second one we won the Tuscan map 5. That's what it was.
Yeah, map 5 it was Tuscan. Yeah,
Hmm.
that was clutch. Let's go Thieves, baby. This is a crazy stat. Thieves, if you think about the majors, obviously Brandon's former team, they have the third highest average placing this season at majors behind FaZe and OpTic. FaZe second every time. OpTic have an average placement of like 4.8, but Thieves are placed 8th, 6th, and then 4th. So they actually have, and 6th is actually the third highest average placing of any team. No other team, everyone is like 6.3 and below in terms of average. So somehow they're actually having like a respectable season out of nowhere.
You're saying they're the third most consistent.
Kind of. I mean, like 8th, 6th, and 4th is actually more consistent than most teams are, to be perfectly honest, especially in this game. I mean, look, they had a good win against ROKKR. I was impressed by that. Their OpTic win was very impressive as well. I think that a lot of people are going to talk about OpTic and the whole splashy situation, which, you know, definitely the momentum swung, but they had to capitalize on that, right? And they played great those few maps. But I do think that the kind of map pool that went into this series favored them in the sense that they got... Kenny was allowed to use the auto and just go off with it, right? Like, if Kenny's forced into an SMG alongside Envoy, that is where they are in danger, and they're still in danger because he goes on to look like vintage Kenny. Like, genuinely, Kenny is one of the most, like, he's one of my favorite players to watch in COD history. He's so exciting to watch when he's on form. His highlight moments are incredible. He had another one against OpTic in that kind of game 4 in the series on the Berlin where he was going rogue, had like an 8 spree, got this ridiculous 2-piece, just snapping on people. Like, he was getting hyped. And then the next series, he drops a 0.7 against Toronto, and you're like, come on, man, what are we doing? And again, that good series he had against OpTic was probably his best series of the year, was pretty much with the AR in hand, despite being the second SMG or whatever on the team. So I'm still concerned that, like, the SMG duo just doesn't really work. They do seem to be a bit better on LAN. Like, I think their playstyle, maybe slightly slower than some teams, favors a LAN environment more than online, especially, you know, I guess in addition to the kind of ping potential issues that they've been discussing. So I think they're always going to be a bit of a threat on LAN. Depends on the map pool, though, I think. And I think, honestly, if they want SMG maps, they're probably chalked most of the time. So the issue is, my concern really here, Brandon, is that Thieves are almost doing a Florida in that if they'd have got 3-0'd by OpTic, which they feasibly could have done, if they'd have lost that search, which they should have lost, and if they'd have lost the control, let's say, if they'd have got 3-0'd, I feel like it would have been very hard for them not to make a change. They might have stuck anyway, but it would have been very difficult if their intention was to win champs, which surely it is, to stick with that team given the way the last few weeks played out. Now getting top 4 and beating OpTic and beating ROKKR, they're probably going to stick, and you know, I'd be surprised if they don't. And I just can't see them winning anything with this team.
It's a tough one because do we all forget about what happened to the Pro-Am too? Like, they were runner up to the Pro-Am, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
that, and I mean, think about the
second and
beginning of the
fourth,
year.
I mean, looking great.
Thinking
for
about the
them.
beginning of the year too, like the kickoff, they
Top
played
4, I
pretty
think.
well. Like Major 1, they played pretty well throughout the qualifier stage. I think it's just like a matter of inconsistency and like finding that right like mental state to maintain within the team. I don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but that's just sort of my hypothesis as to, you know, what could be going on. You know, do they need a change? Maybe, but like, what is the change? Like, I think that's the toughest question. All the, you know, I think it's people have tried to make trades happen during the year, but it's so hard to make a trade happen in esports just because you have to find something of equal value. And in traditional sports, you have like, you know, draft picks that you can trade and, you know, up and coming rookies. But here it's like everyone has to win now, and you know, there has to be immediate value for both teams. So it's just so hard to pull off something like that. And I think, you know, if you look at like the amateur scene, you know, Toronto's got, you know, one of the top amateurs there. I don't know if these are able to pull someone like that. It's just, I think they're in a tough spot. I think their best bet is really to kind of look within themselves and really sort out what they have going on internally, if there is something going on internally. But I think they have the right pieces. It's just a matter of fitting them together and playing to their strengths too. Like we talk about, you know, the ARs and the SMGs, and I think they've got to really like be real with themselves about what their strengths are and then dive deep into that. That's like that's where I feel like they are. But they played pretty well at this tournament. They had their highest placing in a while, so there is a silver lining for them, and I think they should be going home, not entirely disappointed. I think isn't this the highest placement that they've had, since the inception of the team? Besides like amateur or not amateur, besides
Wow, that's a
like
good
events that
point,
don't count.
actually. If you think of
I
all the
think it might be, right?
majors, yeah, they were shambolic last year. There's no way they did better than top 4.
I think
Yeah.
they did get
So-
one top 4 with when they
I
had
was thinking
TJ
they
in.
might have done one top 4 with
Did
TJ.
they?
Yeah.
Am I forgetting what happened with my own team?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think right before you guys brought in Venom at
They're
the end
still
of the
not winning
year.
anything.
We went on that run.
Yeah, I think that was at a major.
We
I
beat
can't
OpTic on
remember
that
though.
run.
We came
and
top.
Heat
I don't think we
situation
came fourth
happened.
there. I think that was like 5th, 6th.
I'll look it up.
Okay, yeah, do that for me.
Fifth, six. It was fifth, six.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. You guys almost came fifth, sixth every tournament, apart from stage 4 and then champs. Shit.
That's impressive.
Wait,
Is
last
it?
year you mean?
Different team
like
every event are getting top 6. There's got to be a record for that.
one,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4 times you came top 6 out of 6 tournaments.
Well, good stuff. Consistency. There we go.
There's the consistency you need.
Uh-huh.
Far out. Yeah, I mean, nothing really stands out for me from the major because, I'm looking at stats, of course. I mean, Draza with a 1.5 in search is pretty mad. Control's looking pretty strong. It's just Hardpoint. They went 2 and 5. And they went 0 and 4 on Gav and Tuscan combined. Remember, don't chalice on Gav. Now, they went 0 and 3 across Control and Hardpoint on Gav. So,
They're
I
missing
guess you can
checkmate,
chalice
man.
on Gav.
That was always funny to me because I never thought Gav was their best map. Like I always thought Berlin was and Tuscan. I always thought Gav was like their 3rd, 4th best map in that map pool. So I always thought that was funny because it was basically they only said that because they were like kind of shitting
Because
on
they
kids
wanted that one time, right?
they were doing because they were winning in league play. That's where that started from, and then it kind of translated as like a meme into their matches, and then so that's why I always thought that was funny because I always thought they were way better at like Berlin. They're Berlin. That's why it always got vetoed versus them. They were really, really strong in that one.
Yeah, but if you look at Gav, it's the only Hardpoint they've never vetoed, which is pretty wild. They love that shit, and they still went 0 and 2 on it in this major.
To be fair, one thought about that too is like we have a lot of one-sided maps. Well, we have 2 quite one-sided maps, and Gav and Bokaj are arguably the only 2 maps that are kind of balanced from both sides. So that could be playing into the thought of why they're not vetoing it, because they're like, well, we want to, if we're team A, we want to start on a map that's balanced and force our opponents to be start on an us good side, them bad side.
Yeah.
Saying that though, that they've vetoed Bokaj 20 times and picked it once.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
well,
because that's because they have an auto veto. Like their auto veto is just Bokaj. They get it out right away. Because to be good at Bokaj, you need your SMGs. Even if your SMGs aren't getting a lot of like high impact and KD wise, you need SMGs to be taking a lot of routes, being really smart on the map. And if they don't feel confident in their SMG play, because you usually have like 3 SMGs in that, that's where they're just gonna get that out. And they'd rather play AR maps like Berlin, Kavutu, and then Tuscan, even though it isn't super SMG or AR heavy, it's still kind of route heavy, break heavy, so you can get away with it on that map.
Okay. Do we have anything we want to talk about with LA Thieves, or are they just kind of this inconsistent, boring
That's
team?
your OpTic, baby, I reckon. Because we've got to
Yeah.
talk about this OpTic series. I mean, man, what a mental one. There's so many storylines about OpTic, man. It's just incredible the amount of stuff that this team can come up with. Like, this was such vintage OpTic, this tournament. First of all, they lose to Florida. Dave Paddy, man, he's 3-0 against Scump on LAN. That's all I want to say. But, I mean, it's so weird why they match up so bad against this team. I don't understand it, really. Like, I don't know if it's necessarily a matchup thing or it's just the fact that Skies and Big Wake just absolutely fried. Like Skies against OpTic here was looking like prime former. Like he was genuinely unkillable. I don't know if it's kind of like an OpTic playstyle thing that allows them to kind of go off in that way. I think some teams restricts individuals from going off a little bit more than the way OpTic play the game, but it's just interesting how these matchups go, that Florida always seem to have OpTic's number. And I don't know if it's in their, you know, like whenever OpTic play Florida next, I'm sure it's going to be playing on their mind a little bit. Their losers bracket run was semi-impressive. They beat LA and Ravens 3-0, and then they play Thieves and they go up 1-0, looking great. They go up 4-1 in the search and destroy, and then the well, what is going to be the infamous Dashy situation happens. He falls off the map. They lose the rounds, and then they got 6-5 comeback on, right? And that's kind of that was the transition after they lost that map too. They went into the break. Thieves were like, damn, we just got gifted that one. Let's go. And they thrived off the confidence knowing it was Berlin, control hardpoint after that, where they are very strong. And they were able to, I mean, the fact that OpTic lost the controls that they did, I think that was the key point. They're losing the control to Florida. They don't lose Tuscan control. They lost it to Florida. They don't generally lose control in general and lost the Berlin to Thieves. So I think that's really their key concern if I'm OpTic, is that if my control is falling off and I'm OpTic, I'm in a tough spot because the control was their key feature of their dominant force at the start of the season. Because their other game modes they've been good enough, but it's the control that's been carrying them through a lot of these series. So yeah, look, we don't know if Illy's going to be back. We think he'll be back for Major 4. That's at least the going rumor that for Major 4 qualifiers, he'll be there. And I think that it did seem like they missed Illy's presence in terms of that composure, because OpTic at the start of the season, they would not have lost that series, at least in the manner that they did. I feel like there was a few times earlier this season when OpTic were clearly, during stage 1, the iciest team in the game. They would just like brush off situations. They would be able to go down 5-3, or they'd go up 5-3, go to 5-5 and still win the round 11. Like the OpTic team of last year never did that. The OpTic team that we saw at this event also wouldn't have done that. So, you know, I think that there's teams that would have regained quickly after that one. And there's OpTic, which they always find ways to lose like this. So I think this kind of showed that Illy might be a more crucial factor than a lot of people were considering. I think the team itself knew that Illy needs to be there. And hopefully they can get him. So I don't know, so many storylines this weekend, Austin. Like, what's kind of the key things that you think about this OpTic team right now?
Well, one like funny one that obviously doesn't really mean much is both teams that actually played in the tiebreaker match ended up beating OpTic at some point this weekend.
I forgot to even mention that. I can't believe it.
Yeah. So like both teams that the league even was saying should try to purposely lose to not play OpTic ended up actually beating them in the end. Yeah, this OpTic team, like I know they said like, look, you got to remember we're still playing with a sub, but we're also like 4 weeks in. Obviously this isn't their full team, so you really can't take too much away from it. The thing with the vetoes that I kind of get upset about is we only have 4 maps in like hardpoint and S&D, which doesn't put pressure on teams to really expand your map pool. You can get comfortable with like 2 or 3 maps and then get away with that. Not saying that OpTic is doing that, but in their control, when they had only 2 controls, no one really liked Gavutu at the beginning of the year, except for like a handful of teams, including like your team, Brandon. And everyone kind of liked Tuscan, and OpTic was just far and away the best Tuscan team at the time. So they were getting a lot of like Tuscan controls in their map set. Now with Berlin in, it gives you a little bit. You have to be kind of good at 2 to 3 of the controls because it could go like any way. Like a team could take out a Tuscan and force you to pick between a Berlin and a Gavutu. So that's just one thing. Maybe they just have to sharpen up their map pool around the other control maps to kind of get their control back up at the par if they are slacking in that. Overall, I still think they're a very good team. Like if you were to pick 3 teams to put in your top 3, it's obviously going to be, you know, Seattle, us, and them. I don't think anyone's going to put anyone else up there. They still had a very good hardpoint record over the weekend. It's just you know, expanding your map pool and control and getting good at, you know, you either have to be really good at Berlin, like very good at Berlin, because they're Tuscan, they still have. But if you're gonna rely on that, if you're gonna rely on not playing Gavutu, you have to get really good at Berlin, which is a really weird map right now. Like I still love Berlin, but it's really like hard to be very consistent on Berlin. So you're kind of rolling the dice there. So that's just my thing. But I actually have a lot of confidence in them to kind of like shape up and get ready for remaining tournaments in the year. Yeah, because we're entering the final like 2 months of the season now, so everyone's going to be grinding and putting in all the work. So I definitely have. It's weird to see top six, but I really don't think that's going to be the case at this next major.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I feel like the excuse of having a substitute is a little bit dead now. I mean, they've had him for what, 4 weeks? they should have really known how to play. They look like a real force going into the major. And then we talked about the control against LA and Florida. They didn't just lose; they got destroyed. Like I think it was. If I take a look, PROLUTE and
3 on
Scump.
Tuscan, I know. Yeah, on
Yeah,
the
PROLUTE
first
and
one.
Scump, and those two controls against LA and Florida had a 0.6. Like they were getting destroyed. The only thing that really looked good for them this whole major or consistently was their search. And Scump and search had, holy shit, my stat sheet is freaking out. Scump had a 1.8 in search, which is wild. I mean, the hard point looked all right as well, but it's just like stats wise across the board, they were extremely like random. No one was like consistent in any mode.
Erratic.
So, yeah. It's really strange to see. And I think this was the first sign that maybe Illy does need to be on this team, or maybe potentially their time has passed. But who knows? I really hope that they haven't peaked too early in the year because Champs is coming up. And my prediction for the year was that they wouldn't win an event and then they'd win Champs. But it might be the opposite way around where they win the first event and then get bodied for the rest, which would be really sad. But yeah, I don't have much more to say on that. I was just pretty disappointed.
It's the Black Ops 4 season playing out again, people are saying. No, I mean, this is like, I'll throw this to you, Brandon, because this has kind of been the thing about OpTic the last few years that's been very intriguing, is that they seem to start rather strong, have good success, whether they win or not is another question, and then they kind of fall off by the wayside, improve marginally towards the end of the year just to get top 3 at champs, which is, it does always look like it's playing out again. I don't know if that's going to happen again. The other point that I just wanted to throw in real quick here is that people were looking at Shotzi's stats. I think I actually have them on my screen here somewhere, comparing LAN to online. Now, it's not necessarily saying Shotzi is an onliner, but basically is saying Shotzi is an onliner because yes, he is obviously incredible in both settings, but his playstyle, like this just hyper aggression, movement based thing, works probably better online than it does on LAN. And online this season, he has a 1.12 across the modes, a 1.24 in search, interestingly. And on LAN, he has a 1.03 overall KD with a 1.05 in search. So especially the search and destroy differential is pretty massive. Like you can bet all the maps that Shotzi's played on LAN versus online, for there to be a 0.2 difference in KD between the two is rather something. Just because I think maybe Search and Destroy is the mode where that kind of mindless aggression that you might be able to get away with online doesn't quite translate as well. So I think maybe that's something that's, when Shotzi's going off, this team wins relatively comfortably, and he doesn't do that as often on LAN for whatever reason. And in fairness, even at Major 1 where they won, Brandon, it wasn't exactly the Shotzi show, it was the Dashy and Illy show. So yeah, do you think OpTic can, I don't know, will they break the OpTic curse and manage to not come top 3 at champs?
Yeah, the online versus LAN thing is interesting. I mean, it's hard to really say anything beyond, hey, this is what the numbers look like, and there's a clear difference, right? But I think that narrative of like, oh, are they repeating the Black Ops 4 season? That narrative only applies if they let that sink in. The reality is, like, they went 4-1 in the stage. They looked really, really good. They came to the tournament, and I mean, this is my analysis. Like, they came up against a Florida team, which is just always hard to predict. I think it was either Will or Dave on one of our interview series. He came on and said, you know, they're a very Chal heavy team, and that's why they think there's a lot of inconsistencies. And I think that's a perfect analysis by their own team about themselves. Like, some days they're super hot, some days they're not, and it's just a matter of, you know, are they winning the gunfights? Are they winning the Chals that they're taking? And they came up against a hot Florida team, and then they came up against, you know, Cold War Kenny or World War II Kenny in the Thieves match, right? But the other two matches, they 3-0'd London and LAG and just looked completely dominant. So I don't think there's too much to worry about unless, you know, it's like mentally affecting them, and these storylines, these narratives are really taking effect. I mean, I do think they need Ender on the team, and hopefully, you know, he's back to health, you know, in due time. But I mean, I think they've looked, you know, all right. Obviously, not the results that they want, but they shouldn't be all disappointed, I think, by the way things have gone. Use it as fuel, basically. Use it as like a chip on your shoulder to prove.
Yep, they've had a chip on their shoulder every year going into champs. and it seems to just make them trip up.
Mm.
Like, we've talked about it before. Black Ops 4, they won the first event. Dashy couldn't get in because of visas. They had to run a different team. They lost all their momentum and then came third at champs. And then that's why it's exactly like this year. It's they look so good, and then a factor that they can't control fucks with their entire momentum. They go into champs with a chip on their shoulder, and then they get shit on. So, you know,
That's
what I'm
tough.
expecting.
That's all I can say. That's tough.
And with that expectation, because every other year I'm like, all right, they might do it. This is the one. And then, nah, top 3, top 6.
That's the mindset of every OpTic fan, right?
Yeah, well, no. Most OpTic fans think that they're deities, like they're gods. Have you seen the
Well, they
replies?
believe. They're always believing.
Oh, God, it's... no, I'm not going to go down that.
Some of the fan, that's all I'll say. Austin, final thoughts before we go on to ROKKR, if you have any.
Yeah, I still wouldn't check out on OpTic yet. I still think they're a really good team. I just think maybe right now, like, they're not fully invested because they know they have a sub, and maybe they have to, re-engage during this break. Like, this is like their mid-season lull that they're having. I still think they're a terrific team. They're always going to be a really good respawn team. On the Shotzzy front, it does seem like no matter how good you're doing, there's always one player that's going to have a really bad KD. No matter, you could be 215 to 50ing people, there's always going to be one person that has a bad KD. And I think that's just how Vanguard's playing, and it's most likely going to be your entry SMG. I think it's just because of the low TTK and the low or the high sprint to fire time. And sometimes you when you need to break a hill, like somebody has to slide in first, and so like that's kind of where you see, like, even with like Tyler's KD this weekend wasn't that high, but I still think he played the best Call of Duty he's played all season this past weekend. He played terrific. Like, I was so happy to see like just the plays he was making on the map, and like then to see like in the grand finals he had like a 0.8, and I was like, that does not do him justice at all. Like, he was so instrumental during the finals. So like I think that's just kind of how this game is that you kind of have to look past the KD. Like, everyone kind of likes to look at the KDs of all these SMG players and then just be like, ooh, not above a 1, he plays bad. Like, and I don't think that plays into it this year.
The number is red, bad.
Yeah,
The number is green, good.
And I think there's a lot more that goes into it this year. Like, in past years, when last year, when the time the kill was higher, SMGs could put up way higher KDs because they could. It's I don't know. It's just that there's a lot that can go into that. But yeah, I don't put too much stock into Shotzzy doing bad. He's still the most impactful player on that team. He's still the player that's going to be the most annoying to play against when you play against them. He's very, very good. So I still got to give him props, even though he might have had like a little bit of an off tournament.
Yeah. You talk about how hard it is though for an entry sub. And then, well, would you consider Pred an entry sub, or you consider him more of a roaming sub?
No, well, it's kind of weird on that one because I feel like he takes a lot of routes.
He takes so many chals though. Like, he just takes gunfights. So he's definitely the more
aggro. If you ever watch him, if you watch him on like Berlin, for instance, he's very, very route heavy. He loves like taking routes, especially in control. I don't know. I don't watch enough like Seattle VOD. Like, for that one, it's almost really weird because like you have like Mac, who also like loves to fly, and then Pred. So I don't know. Like, it's probably easier to call Mac the entry, right? I don't really know where to go on that one. But he had a really good tournament too.
Yeah, Brandon, what do you reckon? Is it?
I mean, whoever's first, sliding in first is that's the way it works on our team. Even Dante will slide in first if needed.
Nice. The ball's nowhere near the action, so it's okay. Let's do ROKKR, baby. I mean, do these guys just get exposed on LAN? Maybe, maybe not. Look, they got good points this major qualifiers. The 5-0 was nice. They came in up against a Thieves team that they were talking trash about. Oh wow, Thieves, they threw to not play OpTic. Now they get to play us. So let's 3-0 them. That didn't work out. I mean, look, they're looking decent for champs now, but Priester kind of went back to having 0.8. That was the key to me, is that when they had their run, Priester was dropping a 1.0 most of the time, and there was attach fry-in the kind of arguably methods-esque way that is unsustainable. And then Priester goes back to having 0.8. The SMGs don't really do much, and the team comes top 8. And, I don't know what we think about the whole Havoc situation, right? Because it was a big talking point this year. Like, did Havoc make a mistake not joining New York? He then gets to join ROKKR. They look good. It's looking all sunshine and rainbows. But I have a hard time seeing Havoc as anything other than a mediocre player that is just going to get mediocre results. That's a pretty hot take, but I don't see him managing to form a team or get on a roster that is really going to compete at the top for a consistent length of time. He's a solid player. He's a serviceable player. He thinks that he can bring a lot to a team, which I think that he can do. And I think he has helped this team, but I'm just not convinced that in a LAN setting on a consistent basis that he's going to be part of a team that's consistently challenging for the top. So I thought I'd throw a little hot take out there.
Might be on
so
Reddit later.
Discuss.
Okay, well, I'll start then. He had a 1.15 in respawn. And then the rest of the team fucking got shit on in search, so it wasn't really his fault. I think he played all right. He had easily the most kills per 10 minutes on his team, more than Attach, who had a 1.3 KD in hardpoint. And then he almost had the most kills in control as well. So I think, honestly, in respawn, he was killing it. But in SND, he had a 0.7, 0.68. So I guess, yes, on LAN, he's shit at Search and Destroy. We can guarantee that one. But you touched on Priester as well. Yeah, I think for the qualifiers, he had like a 1.1 to 1.15. Like he was destroying, and then he goes on LAN, and it's like all that momentum is gone. And then even Attach as well. He only really performed in hardpoint. And then, yeah, they kind of just fell off in the other two modes, which is strange because they look so dominant. They went 15-3 map count across the qualifiers, and they come in here, and then they only destroy Boston, who look like the worst team in the game currently. Well, tied with Paris. They look shit. So, I mean, what can you say? It was really strange to see them get 3-0'd by Toronto as well. For that series, my stats are loading. It was only Attach that went positive, and then the others all got bodied. So weird times for this team. I think they looked a lot better this stage. Like they were the most strange team to watch early in the year because we did call them like the 2-3-5 team, but then they would still lose series 2-3, and then they'd lose game 5. So I mean, they looked a lot better. I think they should be happy somewhat with their improvement, but I just think they need to find that extra thing on LAN because on LAN everything seems to fall apart. And it might have been the matchups. It might have been maybe LA Thieves are onto something, losing that series to try and play them. And then Toronto, yeah, just killed them. So what do you guys reckon?
I mean, I was going to say the matchups too, like come up against Toronto in the home crowd. I mean, Toronto have been looking really good. So Minnesota have to really dig deep there if they want to pull something out there. They went to game 5 in the qualifiers against them and come to LAN and just get 3-0'd. And then again, another hot LA Thieves team, right? So, I mean, I'm not sure I could read too deep into this. Obviously, themselves expect more, wanting to try and, especially with the way that they play during that stage. But yeah, just some hot teams they come up against and not the results they're looking for.
Yeah.
It's tough though, because you kind of got to beat those teams. Like we're at the point in the season now, but that's what I was kind of saying earlier. Is like I do feel like there's only like if you were to pick people that win tournaments and what's the percentage base, I feel like right now there's only like 3 teams. You're gonna say either us, you, or OpTic, but the rest of the midfield is extremely packed. I really believe that like 4 through 11 anyone can beat each other in any day. But when you're on the wrong side of 8th place, which Minnesota are, you have to beat the teams that are close to you. And like they beat Boston, which isn't much though, but they lost to 2 teams that they have to beat. They have to beat if you want to go to COD champs. And I don't really like using the excuse of like home field advantage. Like I still feel like that should hype you up as a challenging team coming into that because you can like match that energy and use that for you. Like that's what I kind of like feel like how we did is we kind of like fed off of like that energy too because it still feels electric. It still feels good when you're up there. So I don't know. Like it's one of the rough tournaments for them. Like they needed to do better. You know, beating LA Thieves, who are now ahead of them in the standings, would have been a great win. Beating Toronto, who's ahead of them, would have been a great win. They can still bounce back from it because they're only 10 points away from LA Thieves and 15 points away from LA Gorillas. It's not like all doom and gloom because they did perform very, very well during the the qualification matches. So I still have some like faith in them to do really good. On the Havoc side, I actually do think Havoc's good in this game because he's really smart with his routes and he's really just like he's just always coming at you. The thing with him is he's using his in-game IQ to get around, like be more impactful. And I still think he's good. I still think what he brought to the table was a level of passion that was missing on that Minnesota ROKKR team, and he kind of fired up the rest of the guys. In that's kind of where they built the momentum. I just hope that a rough weekend like this doesn't derail that momentum, because they were looking really really good in the qualifiers. They were 5-1 in S&D, 5-0 in control, 5-2 in hardpoint. They come into this and they go 1-3 in S&D, and like more importantly, they lost a Game 5 S&D to LA Thieves. They lost a really important Game 2 S&D to Toronto that they needed to get back into the series. So I just hope this momentum like ding that they just had this past weekend doesn't derail them for Major 4. Like I hope they can like bounce back from that and fight back for that 7th and 8th seed.
To your point, like these are like necessary wins too, because it's going to come down to tiebreakers for that eighth spot. So losing these does hurt for them.
It hurts. Yeah.
You gotta win the ones that matter the most, especially at this time of the season with how tight the race is.
We'll certainly get to that in a second. Yeah. No, it's tough to know what to think about Havoc, but I think that there's some players in the league that are kind of, I mean, the Premier League analogy isn't great, but there seems like Norwich City that just like are constantly in the Premier League, then they get relegated to the Championship, then they're up again and are down again. And it's like there's some players that are going to be perennially in that cycle of going from getting a spot on the pro team to being in challenges the next year, then getting another spot, and then just bouncing around. And I feel like Havoc and Kismet are kind of potentially in that boat. We shall see. Speaking of Kismet, Subliners, I mean, what's going on here, man? I had faith in the boys, but it didn't happen. It was actually tragic. Double rounded again. I was actually impressed that they got double rounded again. This was an impressive collapse from New York because like they needed points more badly than anyone else in the league, and they managed to just get 0 from this event, $0 as well. They Neptune and I mean that was a funny tweet from the Breaking Point account, but yeah, Neptune and Clayster both made more money than New York did this weekend, which is tough.
And royalty.
And royalty, really? Oh no!
Show,
Oh
yeah.
no! Oh no! That's disastrous. Look, I mean, the Seattle series they arguably could have won. The game 5 round 11, the ice wasn't there, and that's really been the issue for. I mean, losing both search and destroys there is again effectively unforgivable, right? Because this New York team, I've said it before, when they won the Pro-Am, they didn't need their search and destroy. They were so dominant in the respawns. When it came down to actually having to win some game 5s, they just can't do it. And even against London, they lose the search there. So look, people are saying it's chalked, which it probably is, but we don't really know how many points you're going to need to get to champs. Like my theory is it might be around the 150 mark. And they can get to that number in a couple of different ways. If they go 4-1, I mean, if they win the major, they get 65, which points them at, let's say, 135, which means they need to win maybe, if they win they can probably go 3-2 and win the major and get in. If they go 4-1 or 5-0, they might be able to come second, but it's going to be, I mean, they 100% need the grand final of the next major, and they're so far behind that it might just be chalked. So, look, I don't know. The Hydra situation to me is interesting because Aches was saying that maybe if you're New York or if you're another team, just try and get Hydra now before his contract is over. But like if I'm New York, I'm not just going to sit there and not make champs. Like as long as there's a chance I can make champs, and it is like a not completely unrealistic one, you've got to go for it. And I don't think there's, you've kind of committed to this move. We know they left it too long for this move. They finally found a reasonable team, but the other, and of course, the Hydra question, like more than likely his contract is up, meaning that he's effectively free to go elsewhere. And if they don't make champs, I highly doubt to be a part of this roster unless they effectively just give him the keys. And then I also made a point too on Paul X just before I throw it to you, Austin, because Paul X we saw last year was incredible on London when he first joined that team, right? He joined London, he was looking individually really good. They had a nice honeymoon period with him. And then towards the end of the year, he just became mediocre and the team fell off. And I do wonder if there's a similar trend here in that Paul X looked great when he didn't have a spot. And then when he gets a spot locked down, his level just seems to drop a little bit. Like, I don't know the stats, right? But just in terms of impact, it felt like Paul wasn't the same player this weekend, and even in the qualifiers, as he was when he was first in London at the start of the season, then in New York, then at the Pro-Am, for example. It seems like his level kind of tails off as the year progresses, which you can't afford to have happen when Hydra is effectively the only player putting up numbers on the team. So yeah, I think on current evidence, they're for sure chalked for champs, and the roster mania with this team is going to be insane going into next season. But I'm sure the teams above them are pretty happy about this result, Austin.
Yeah, I was actually, I don't know. This New York team, I knew they had a tough matchup against you guys, and I saw who they were going to drop down to, and I went into that tournament thinking they could definitely go 0-2 and just get like kind of like bopped out. I didn't. I don't know. I feel like they're a good team, but not great. I feel like they could be a midfield team that makes runs, as we saw at the Pro-Am. But the problem is like I don't think their SMG duo is terrific, and I think their AR duo has a lot of like inconsistencies because they're kind of like Florida, where they're like Paul loves the challenge. He's always gonna love to do that. Crim's a very aggro AR, so when that happens, you're gonna have your good days and bad days. And sometimes their system it relies on good players popping off a little bit more. They're not gonna be able to scrape by when they have like a bad day. So that's just my thing. For champs, I feel like that ship is sailing. Put it in perspective, if LA Thieves go like 5-0, they lock in a seed, right? It doesn't even matter. New York can win the major, and they would still be 70 points ahead of New York, so they would lock in a major. And then same thing for like Boston just needs to win 4 matches, and they lock in a major. Toronto needs to win 3, they lock in a major. London 2, they lock it in, right? So you just start eliminating you start eliminating spots instantly. It's gonna be I would put it at like 2% chance they make this, because they would have to go 5-0 and win a major, and I don't see it happening, especially in this current form. So it's tough. I do feel like there's a lot of good pieces on the team. Like I still feel like Crim's a good player. I feel like Hydra's a good player. I feel like Paul's a good player. Like even kids, I feel like all 4 of them are good players. But sometimes it just doesn't click for a team. Sometimes you're already in too deep of a hole to climb out of. It just is what it is. So it does suck for them, because I don't think Crim's he's obviously never missed a champs, but this is gonna be probably the first year where we don't get Crim out of champs, and
or Clay maybe.
Yeah, and Clay. And I do see like we should have all 12 teams at champs. I don't think so. I think we have a regular season for a reason, and I think champs, which they should stop calling it, is CDL playoffs, and you should be punished for being shit. In my opinion, I know it's very close 4 through 11, but if you are shit for 80% of the season, I don't think you should be rewarded with that in the playoffs. That's just my thing. So that's just how it is. I definitely feel like the 4 seeds, like you have. There is zero excuse. You have a chance right now. If you're you had a chance if you're New York to make the champs if they performed good at this past major. You have a chance if you're Florida, Minnesota, LA Thieves, LA Gorillas, Boston to make it the champs if you do good this next major. So I feel like that's your qualifier right there. You know, you have to perform, and that's kind of how I like that. It puts more pressure on you doing good in these group stage matches.
Yeah, when it mattered, New York are 0-5. Like on LAN at majors, their map counts 5 and 15. Like that doesn't deserve to go to a playoffs at the end of the year.
It also creates these interesting storylines as well, you know. Like if all 12 teams went to champs, who gives a shit?
Yeah, it makes it interesting. That's what everyone's talking about, is making champs. So it's like if everyone goes, what's the point in even trying? You touched on Paul X like losing his touch. He's the only one that went positive in all 3 game modes. He had a 1 in hardpoint and search, and then a 1.2 in control. Like he's still doing his shit. Hydra though, he had a 1.9 in control, which is wild for the 2 maps that they played. It's probably why they went 2-0 in that mode. But then they went 1 and 6 across hardpoint and search and destroy. So their hardpoint woes back. Their search and destroy is still not there. There's not really much more to touch on. They just got outclassed by Seattle, outlasted, and then London, they really probably shouldn't have lost that series. They were looking a lot better in the qualifiers, and then show up at LAN and then shit the bed. So I don't know. It's really quite hard to watch New York because they are one of my favorite teams to watch. I want to see Crim do well, obviously. I think everyone does. But yeah, it's just been a tough year for him. That's all.
Yeah, that tournament sucks for them. I feel like in the qualifiers, they relied a lot on their hard point to like carry them through series, and they showed up to the tournament and they went 1-3. The only hard point they won was against us. Even despite that, though, like actually one more point before that, their search has never been good. That's kind of costed them a lot, especially in the tournament, going 0-3. So that's a tough part there. Maybe they, new roster just didn't have enough time to work on everything. Hard to really say that though, because they did have around a month, maybe a bit more, because they had the Pro M2. With the way that they played us, I'm shocked that they lost to London. Nothing against London, just I feel like that was theirs to lose, and they lost it, and that's ultimately what really is putting them in a tough spot now going forward. And I think I saw a tweet from KIZ. They're gonna try to make the run, and 100% they should. A team has to win the next major, and a team in theory can go 5-0, so it's not impossible. So, I mean, that's what they got to focus on, but it's going to be tough, I think. And this was the tournament that they needed the most, and they failed to kind of deliver. And feel for the guys over there.
Yeah,
there is a trade deadline, right? There definitely was. There was last year.
Last
but
year
the thing
there was before major.
Before, yeah, they had it pretty early.
Stage 5, right?
Yeah, before it even started. So it makes me wonder if there's. I honestly don't know. I wonder if there is a trade deadline that's happening. I wonder if it's in the next 2 weeks. So that's why you might see some roster changes. But yeah, it's kind of tough for New York. Like you have to either just bail out this season to say like fuck it and trade everybody, or I don't know, like hold on and try to make it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that, because the next point on the list is which teams need to blow it up. Because here we are, we're sitting 2 weeks out from the 2.5 weeks away from Major 4 qualifiers beginning. And the frustrating thing to me is that I don't know who will make a move, if anyone, but if these teams, I mean, first of all, some of these teams need to make a move if they actually want to secure champs, because the way things are currently looking, it's looking very slow for some of these teams. Like we looked at the standings, and we'll look at them again here in a second, after Major 2, and it was like, wow, London a third, we've got, it was Boston 4th, and then LAG 5th, and now it's a very different story, because all of the midfielders improved drastically and are rapidly moving up the pecking order, especially with some of those teams getting top 12, which nets you, of course, 0 points. Now, look, I'll throw in a few teams here, because first of all, there's some teams, like even the likes of Thieves, and I know that Thieves, there's no upgrade out there that even makes sense to improve that team, unfortunately for them, realistically, that they could acquire. But, still, a team like that, or a team in that ballpark, like a ROKKR maybe, there's no real move that they can make, probably, and they probably won't make one. But I do feel like they might be in need of something else or another gear if they actually want to plan to win one of these remaining 2 events. But there's some teams that just need to make a move if they actually want a chance to solidify stuff, right? So, look, LAG and Boston are kind of the 2 ones to me. They've been on the biggest downhill trajectory. LAG look completely lost. I don't know what the hell they do, because none of their players have been playing well. There's no clear guy you even build around here right now. Hook has been... I mean, they've pretty much all been lackluster since the major, with the exception of... well, I mean, like Asim has been the biggest drop-off, right? From being, in my opinion, at least a top 7-8 MVP candidate in the running for the first half of the season, to now being nowhere near has been huge for them really in general. And the fact that Gunners has come back and not performed anywhere near as well as he was at the start of the year, like, again, I don't know what you change, but I feel like if you don't blow it up, they're not making champs. I mean, we'll look at the standings and what we could predict to that in a second here, but I don't see them making it with this current roster. And then Boston, like, I hate to say it, I know we've had many discussions, and I've said it on the show before, that when they were in the kind of top 4 team in the game discussion, it always pains me to say that they were the 4th best team because I never felt it in my heart that that was true, but they were based on the numbers and the teams they were beating. And it feels like having played some actual good teams have just been completely exposed. I mean, Methods individually has failed to deliver a 1.3 every series, which is expected. But I mean, like, it's obviously when that doesn't happen, they just don't have the talent to compete with the best teams. And it almost feels like because they were good and now they're not good, it's getting to them, right? And I know that Methods is really frustrated with it, with how the last few weeks have gone, which doesn't bode well for the health of this roster, but also for their future, right? So those are kind of the 2 key teams to me. London, I don't know if they're going to get Gizmo back. I feel like Gizmo, was he not playing in the Challengers event in Toronto this past weekend? Like, what's going on there? What's going on? I don't get it. But anyway, get Gizmo back in if he's able to. I mean, Paris, we've got Paris. There's no point, but the only possibility of anything interesting happening with Paris is if Temp gets sold to another team that wants to upgrade. That is a possibility. I hope it happens. And then people are also talking about Florida and whether they could do an upgrade. But I feel like, again, because they beat OpTic, they won't change anything. So I feel like more teams need to change than will. But I hope we get at least 2 changes because I can't see LAG and Boston surviving these next couple of weeks without serious considerations. What do we think, Brandon, as kind of the GM of Surge? If you were the GM of LAG or Boston, like, would you be pulling the trigger?
Here's what I'll say. I'm not going to say any trades that I think should happen, but I think if you're... What's up?
That comes for a fee, consultancy fees on that.
Right. And possibly, I get fired from my job if I do that. But I think there's 4 teams probably that don't need a change right now. That's Atlanta, OpTic, Seattle, and Toronto. And then anyone outside of that, just in general, if you're not, a team that's contending, you should be always thinking about ways of how do I contend, whether that's, coaching staff change, whether that's adding a player, signing someone from challengers. You got to change something. If you're not trying to win, you shouldn't be here. So any team outside of the teams that I mentioned probably needs to be thinking about what else they need to do. New York's probably out of changes. They've made enough this year. I don't know how much more money they are willing to spend or can spend, but that's my take. And I think outside of those 4 teams, what's up?
But I know you can't say any trades, but what if we went through some of these teams and said where their weak points are, like where they could upgrade, or where maybe where their strong points are and where they could build off of? Because there's like for Florida, for instance, I do feel like they are a very slay heavy team. They have good pieces to build around off that. But sometimes it feels like their objective work is delegated to one person, and then you kind of see like a little bit of a fracturedness on the map when stuff isn't going the right way. If you were going to make the move, it's really tough to say who you would do. You would argue that it would probably either be you would take Dave out and make Awakening and Skies the ARs again, and find somebody to move with Reese, like Vivid, because sometimes Vivid has such a low KD because it seems like the pacing's off. Seems like he's kind of going off on his own. It kind of reminds me of sometimes like how like Toronto gets, where Toby or Kleenex just continuously pushes kind of by himself. But like that team right there, it seems like if they were to make a move, it would have to be for a more supportive SMG that will link up with Vivid on the map sometimes and help them push stuff out, do some of the objective work so it doesn't rely just on one person. But that's the thing is like when you try to build those rosters and then you identify your weakness, it's very hard right now to find players that fit like certain roles that are going to be available too. But like Rab and Lion, is there a perfect player you guys would suggest to Florida if that was going to be a case there?
I mean, look, Scrappy is out there.
He's an AR.
Do they really need another AR?
No. I mean, you were talking about what, the SMG situation?
I feel like that's where you would go with that, no? Or would you go a different route?
True, but most people would say, I don't know. I mean, I agree. I do agree, but like, I don't know. I'm just not convinced in the whole Dave Paddy thing, to be honest. I know a lot of people aren't convinced by it, but I want Scrappy to be in the league somewhere, and maybe Scrappy to Boston is maybe the best move that he could have. But Awakening is doing well in the SMG at times. It's tough to fix that team because they're so committed to this idea, Florida, that they just can't seem to get away from it, which is frustrating, but we've told them this for ages now.
mean, the
I didn't mean
other
to
thing
like. Oh,
go on.
you go.
Okay, the other thing I was gonna say is like the problem is it's a Slay heavy team, and I think the solution to that starts a lot earlier in the season. To solve that now is less of an internal solution, more of like a plug and play. And finding a plug and play at this point in the season, I think, is difficult. So that's my take on it.
Yeah. I didn't want to like target anyone either. Like I just started with Florida because Florida's the 10th seed, and realistically, they're the only ones. Like they're like the lowest of the teams that has a shot to make it into playoffs at the end of the year. The next one is Minnesota, and like Minnesota is actually one of those tricky teams where I feel like how this is how we felt like about New York before after the Pro-Am, where there's actually a lot of good pieces on Minnesota, and when they're doing well, they're clicking. But it seems like this is now one of those. I believe this is. Let me see. They got 0 points at Major 2. They got 10 points at Major 1. So they're now out of 3 majors, they've only gotten 20 points on LAN. Would you guys actually make a big change for this Minnesota team?
No, because the reasons why they're struggling are the same reasons why they were so good online. Like Priester not showing up on LAN, he was the reason that they were, in my opinion, playing so well in the qualifiers. So if you made a change there, it's like, which piece do you take out? They just made a change and the team improved. Was that their honeymoon phase? I don't know. But out of all the teams in that bottom, well, I guess apart from Toronto in that bottom 8, they're the only team that I can't really see making a change and getting any better. Like Scrappy, if I was going to put him somewhere, like I'd probably put him on London, like instead of Gizmo. Boston, yeah, but would you take out TJ?
That would be who you would have to do it for if you did an AR switch there.
Yeah. It's weird. It's just like the challenges aren't getting really enough light to know who the real contenders are to come into that spot. Yesterday on the flank, they were talking about how more players need to be streaming their POVs of matches and whatnot to be able to like get that light shone on them. And so it's difficult. I think because we can't have trades really in the league, that's not become the normal thing yet. It's like making those swaps across the season for players that fit your team better and vice versa aren't like viable. So that's why I think a lot of teams haven't made changes, because it's like the challenges risk, even though it's proven in the past that when you bring in a challenges player who looks hot, usually it helps the team. This late in the season, it's like there aren't many options at all to do that because they've all been poached or they're all under contract, or like PROLUTE, he's under contract still now, and so he'd have to be.
They're probably going to try and keep him just in case, they're not just going to let him go.
And
I have a name though. You could do. So I know this team has been doing really, really well, but some people still might not know. But Vickle, I think Vickle is a very good like SMG that's doing his role pretty nicely in that Toronto Ultra Academy. That isn't under contract to my knowledge. Like I'm pretty sure it's just Scrappy on that team that's as a substitute.
Just Scrappy that's signed, yeah.
And I know like HECZ's the substitute for Toronto as well. So I actually do think that Vickle should, but probably won't get some interest. I feel like he could be a kind of plug and play player that can play that objective role to kind of like play however you want. So I don't know. There's a couple of players, but it's actually really hard to see because like this is your one shot to like upgrade your roster, and you cannot do it. Like whoever you have on your roster, you can obviously put your substitutes back in and out, but I am interested to see if any other players even get signed as a substitute in the next 2 weeks. So then you could take that risk going in if stuff doesn't go well the next 3 weeks into the Major 4.
I think the issue is that like there's not many SMG players left, Like, I mean, you're talking about Vickle, and there's some other names that could come to mind. I know people are talking that like real kid from Spain, but of course, like the whole language thing isn't going to work out immediately there, and who knows what happens in the future. But most teams, if they're going to upgrade, it's going to be in the SMG department, right? And there isn't options there until the off season, really. I mean, I know people have been talking about Wardy, I think, like, and Beans for Priester, people are saying in the chat as well. Like, I mean, yeah, Neptune's an option as well as Eclipses, actually. Yeah, that's an interesting point. And I feel like on that kind of note about Neptune is that, I mean, look, if teams believe they can fit him into their system quickly enough, and Crims kind of not fully on the board about no team wanting him after what happened about New York. But it's like, I mean, look, if you want to get a talented SMG player, there are many other options that are feasible than Neptune, to be perfectly honest. He has a lot to prove as well. And a team like Minnesota, I would not be surprised if they do try major in for Priester again at some point. I feel like that's a change that they did say they were trialing like 2 rosters. And I believe that I'm pretty sure it was like Standy, maybe Standy wasn't always there, but it was definitely Havoc and Attach. And I think Standy and Major Medic was like the other roster that they thought was potentially viable. So I wouldn't be surprised them give that a go, because I'm sure he's kind of, wants to prove his worth on the team. I do feel like their Search and Destroy was more solid when he was there, and they would have won that game. Well, maybe they wouldn't have won it, but that game 5 against Thieves, the fact they won 3 rounds against Thieves over 2 maps is like, Major Maniac doesn't let that happen, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I still think there's a lot of good ones, though. I feel like you have like Brezzy out there. You obviously have Scrappy, but you would have to do a buyout. Wardy, for any, people that want to take a risk on an EU player, would be a terrific like SMG player to come on in. Actually, this is going to sound really weird, but Adam Assault has been a very good like main AR. He's been playing really, really well in this game. But I feel like AR wise, it's pretty hard. You have like Assault, Brezzy, Scrappy if you can get them out of a buyout. SMG wise, it's looking a little bit hairy, but yeah, I don't know. It's definitely going to be a weird like 2 weeks. I do hope that some teams, even though they might not think it's a worthwhile investment, would sign substitute players that they could, if stuff doesn't work out the first like week or two, would put a substitute player in. That's kind of a way to get around like the trade deadline, but I don't know if that's gonna be a thing on the radar right now. I don't see that happening.
Well, I think that was a good discussion. Let's talk as we close out the episode on who we think out of the 12 teams in the league is going to make it to champs. If you can bring this up on stream mobile, that would be fantastic. There are, I would say, there are 3 teams that I think are locked in for sure in FaZe, OpTic, and Seattle. We're saying the chat on Subway. Let's go. Okay, cool. And then, so Seattle, you guys are on 175 now. You're looking pretty fantastic work. Job done. Because I think that will certainly be enough. Now, 150 for London, I don't know. Because if you're thinking about where the current 8th seed is, that's at 120. Are 8 teams going to have more than 150? Possibly that's going to be the case, but it does depend on Gorillas and Thieves and ROKKR and stuff like that. But it's plausible that is the case. So London probably have to win a couple more series, as you said earlier, Austin. But they do play Paris, which is a big deal. So I'll just mention real quick the 5 teams that play Paris. Now, look, no disrespect intended to Paris, albeit a little bit. An 0-5 is on the cards again, and these teams may have 3 victories. So Florida play Paris, LA Thieves play Paris, Minnesota play Paris, OpTic play Paris, and Seattle play Paris. So, Seattle, OpTic, they're already in the race, or they're already out of the race effectively. So, Thieves, Minnesota, and Florida all theoretically get a free 10 points on the board, which could be very important, because if you're looking at a team like Boston that does not have an easy run, they play LAG, LA Thieves, OpTic, Seattle, Toronto. That's not easy. Both LA teams, and then 3 of the top 4 teams in the game. Boston have an awfully difficult run, and they're only at 130. So you can expect London and Toronto to move ahead of Boston, and then it's a question of can Thieves ROKKR potentially overtake Boston? So, look, the question is, guys, which teams are going to get top 8 here? It's tough to call. I think we're probably all going to agree that Subliners and Legion are chalked. I think picking New York to get out of this hole would be a pretty ballsy one. And so effectively there's 10 teams there with 8 spots up for grabs, and we have to find 2 teams that aren't going to make it, because I think that it does come down to some changes. Because looking at it right now, especially because Florida have that series against Paris, and that could put them at 120. I'm looking at LAG on 125. I'm looking at Boston at 130. And I'm thinking both of those teams on current form are going to get overhauled here by teams below them that are currently stronger. And if I'm LAG or Boston management, I'm absolutely terrified of that possibility. What do you think, Lion?
Yeah, I think out of Boston, LAG, I think Toronto's clear because I think that they're playing well enough. I think it's just really the bottom 6 or 7. And then take away the 2 bottom. So it's that 5 in the middle: Boston, LAG, LA Thieves, ROKKR, and Mutineers. I think the worst 2 teams in that 5 are Boston and LAG. And I think it's a bit of a toss-up. And so I think it will be LA, ROKKR, and Mutineers that make it. And then Boston and LAG in 6th and 7th will drop down and not make it. But obviously that depends on matchups and all that. Might be some tiebreakers. But I think, I think Thieves, ROKKR, and Mutineers are the best out of that 5. And it's kind of just whoever plays the best, obviously. That's me. Yeah, you're going to move on?
Yeah, damn
Yeah.
right. Damn right.
No, I think
Also, what do you reckon?
I think that's a pretty actually safe bet to see the Boston LG drop down. I'm gonna go with kind of a hot take right now. I don't think it's gonna change. I think it's gonna stay the top 8. Gonna stay the top 8. I need to see Minnesota do well on LAN. They got again. They were just as hot as any team coming into this last tournament, and did not perform up to my expectation. Obviously, their S&D took a major hit, and sometimes it's just you just have a bad week of S&D. It can happen if you get like super anti-stratted and you're just not having a good time. But 2 wins over 3 LAN majors is a little bit concerning. So that's my only worry. The thing with Florida is like literally, I would not be shocked to see Florida go like 4-1 and then come like top 4 this next major. But I'll also not be shocked to see him go like 1-4 and then get like lost in the losers bracket. It's so confusing to me, like how to predict them. I don't think LEG is in a very good spot right now. I really don't. I feel like they're the team in the top 8 that has the biggest threat of being locked out. Again, they have gotten 60 points. If you take out that major victory, they have 60 points. Like that is really bad. That is not good. So like they're the only team I'm really worried about. I actually think Boston should be good. They are pretty consistent on the online matches. And they have 7 wins over, so they're 7-8. So they're pretty much a lock to get at least 2 or 3 wins. Even though I know they have a harder schedule, so that would put them at like 150, 160, which would put them around where London is right now. So I still think they'll be okay. I just think it's going to be and I think LA Thieves actually plays the game pretty correct. They're really they do have like on the macro level of the game, they have a good understanding of it, but they just have a hard time with this in the slaying department. That just makes the game way harder on themselves. That's just my point of view on it. I still think they're gonna do pretty well, point wise, make it through. And as you said, they've actually gotten a better placing at every single major they've gone to, and they did well at the Pro-Am. So they do pretty well on LAN. It's just, hopefully they can online not get into their head of this server issue and just stick it out and just make it through, because that's what they're going to have to do. So yeah, the only team I really see I could see Minnesota or Florida leapfrogging LAG, but for right now, I think I'm going to go with it just stays how the top 8 is right now.
All right, let me close this out. Here's my take. We agree on the top 4. I think the stage is going to be mixy because we all agree again 4 to 11 are super competitive, right? People are going to win some, people are going to lose some. Maybe there's some slight shifting in the points. I think what it's going to come down to is performance at the major, and that's going to determine the top 8. I don't think the stage is really going to reveal anything, that we're, not expecting, I guess. So I could see it staying the same, but at the same time, I could also see Lions World where Boston and LAG struggling right now don't turn up at the major, and the other teams kind of just squeak past them because of some of their placements. So it's tough. It's tough to say which one of those is actually going to come out true. Obviously, Paris, New York don't make it. This year is a tough one to predict.
Tiebreakers could come through as well, because I don't.
Yeah,
I'm just looking right now at Florida. Like their record is atrocious, right? Like they're 9-14 series count, but they're still somehow there. But I'm like, that probably means that if tiebreakers come into effect, they're going to struggle.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I forgot about that. That makes it even harder to predict because we could have like 2 or 3 teams tied right around that like 9th, 8th, 7th spot or 10th, 9th, 8th spot or whatever, and yeah, it's gonna come down to some weird tiebreakers probably.
That's where
Absolutely.
that's where the Minnesota losses actually like that from this major stack up because that's 2 losses against teams that are above you. And when you look at Minnesota's, like Minnesota has you guys and Texas and Florida on their schedule for this next like group stage. I think that's very hard to win 3 matches over theirs. And then when you look at Boston has Texas, LA Thieves, Seattle, LA Gorillas, and Toronto. So they actually have a really tough one too. I don't know, like I don't think the leaderboard, just as you said, I don't think it's going to change that much based off of the league matches. I just have to look at some of the performances these teams have shown on LAN and like kind of like predict off of that. It's super tough this year.
Thing is, if you're starting like it matters. I agree, the major matters more, but if you perform badly in these qualifiers and you start in losers, and like because we're talking about these teams as if okay, we'll see what happens at the major, but obviously you've got to consider the fact that you've still got FaZe, OpTic, Seattle, Toronto at the top that are probably going to be in winners. So then you've only got 4 more winners spots for 6 teams, say, that are vying to make champs here. And New York, of course, are in discussion for that as well. They're still going to try and do it. So, like, at least 2 of these teams in the fight are going to start in losers and have an awfully difficult time and a stressful time with that. So, yeah, I don't know what my take is really. I feel like Gorillas will drop out, and I want to take Gorillas out of there. And then I don't know. I want to have faith in Minnesota and Boston that they can do it over Florida because, my relationship with Florida, they frustrate me too much that I would like to see them not a champs because I can't handle this inconsistency. So, yeah, my take is LAG Florida, I think. Even though that's tough to say because they have such an easy schedule, but, they get double rounded at the major. That's my hot take prediction. Choke when it matters. They like doing that.
You love the hot takes.
Yeah, we got to throw some in there now and again. If they come true, you look like you know what you're doing. Most of the time they don't. Fantastic work, gents. That's going to do it for the show today. Thanks all for turning out in the channel on YouTube. Had a good discussion about various topics, let's just say, live on air. Thoughts, gentlemen, before we close out the show? I mean, next week it's going to be kind of interesting. It's not a 3 break anymore. It effectively is. It's 2.5 weeks, but effectively amounts to a 2-week break here before everything is back in business and we really get going again. And yeah, I mean, we've got Modern Warfare 2 reveal happening tomorrow, at least some indications from the trailer. So that's exciting. We've heard some news about that over the last few days, which I'm sure we'll talk about in next week's show. But I mean, yeah, Brandon, final thoughts before we close out. Thanks for joining us very much indeed. Hopefully we can get more of you if you just keep winning more events.
Yeah, I mean, look, thanks for having me on. Pleasure to kind of chat with you guys and talk to the community. Yeah, that's that. Thanks for all the support from all the fans as well. You guys are awesome. See you guys on the social medias and in person at the event. So appreciate you guys all.
Austin.
Yeah, go Austin.
Not much. I'm just excited to see the Modern Warfare reveal tomorrow. I think that's what it's supposed to be. I think that's what they tweeted out, right? But whatever it is tomorrow, I'm just excited to start seeing some Call of Duty for like the next 2 years that we're gonna be playing. Congrats again, Brandon and the team. I still like it was a great run. Like that finals, like grand finals, like even though we lost, like I was literally gonna text you after that map 8. Like whatever happens this map 9, like this is what Call of Duty's about. Like it was such a great series. Even though like we fell down, like it was still like a really great series, like back and forth every map. So yeah, I'm just like even though this game, people like kind of shit on it, it's still produced a lot of great Call of Duty. Yeah, so like I just love watching it, even though it's chaotic and everything, but. Yeah, just excited to see next year's game, start getting ready. I know a lot of teams really aren't taking a break. I think teams are scrimming tomorrow already, so yeah, back onto the grind.
Yeah. I don't have much to say, just check out the socials on Breaking Point. Going to be posting a whole bunch of shit there. Yeah, and my personal, I'm going to put some cards out, some bullshit. And then I'm excited for the final stage because then we'll see who's going to make it to champs.
Let's
That's
go.
all.
Have your hype today, line. Good morning. Okay, fantastic stuff, everyone. Thanks all for joining. Thanks for all the support. Yeah, thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.